Hello, Eric.
Hey, Mike, how are you, man?
So today we talked about procrastination is not a weakness, as a signal to evaluate, ask for help. There's some biological or some cultural or some historic basis to this. When our ancestors were sitting in a hut in a jungle or something like that, fear is hardwired. So really, it's about what actions are we doing to help us overcome fear.
So we're recording, right? Yeah, we
Yep,
are.
we're
Yeah.
recording.
Well,
Yep.
that's great. Welcome to our viewers. Thank you for tuning in again to Financial Blind Spot, another episode 4 here. Before we get into this next blind spot, Mike, you had a very interesting week. Do you want to share briefly what you did?
Yeah. Got the opportunity to go do a presentation at the University of Calgary yesterday, and they had a risk management
Nice.
class, and a woman that I worked with at Price Waterhouse a long time ago. I was actually looking at my CA, my chartered accountant designation the other day, 1994, 30 years, man.
Holy moly.
It doesn't feel like 30 years. And so, yeah, so we just sat there and we had a little conversation around they're doing a case around succession transition for a family.
Yeah.
And Noreen, who's a course instructor, has kind of put every issue that could ever possibly happen inside of this family. One of the kids is dependent on alcohol and other things to keep them going. And there's divorce, there's drama. It's like it could be a made for TV movie. But it
Yeah.
was it was wonderful because the students there were all in their 20s, right? And they
Yeah.
asked a lot of great questions. They were eager, and yeah, I got a lot of hope for the future, Eric. Seeing those
Good.
bright
Yeah.
faces in their bums and bums in their chairs and doing their thing. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm very optimistic about the new generations coming up in every field. I think the minds out there are amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah. So awesome. How do you feel after
Yeah.
doing that?
Yeah, no, it's good. Like, it's kind of like one of those things where you just feel good about giving back, right? The only thing is,
Yeah.
is I went in there thinking I had all this wisdom, and don't get me wrong, I was able to impart maybe a little bit. Thing is, when you're actually in a conversation, right? If your goal is to
Yeah.
have a conversation, then sometimes you just don't know where the conversation goes, right? Because you're not there with an agenda. And the teacher, my friend Noreen, asked me a few questions and got me on the board, and I was doing a little chalk talk there, and drawing some pictures. And so, yeah, but you know what, it was great. It just feels really good to give back, right? At least when
Right
you're in a
on.
position where you feel like you can give back, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's very cool. It's nice for them to get that kind of experience in the classroom rather than just the theory, right? That we
Mhm. Mhm.
we obviously need, but the experience is huge.
Oh, it is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right on. So here we are, financial blind spots.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about
Guess
today,
what?
Eric?
It's number yeah, the number 3 blind spot in the book, which is
Yeah.
procrastination. I don't think it's anything new to anybody that may be listening. I think we all suffer from it, whether it's getting on a diet, starting to work out, or doing something about our finances, right?
Mhm.
And I think what we found and what we wrote about is that it's it's basically a time to evaluate things. It's not a time to start beating yourself up about a pause, but to evaluate, ask questions, etc., and go from there. We basically concluded, I think, Mike, that it's a time to embrace that reality, maybe look deeper to what's causing it.
I think there's been a lot of people that have been really evaluating what procrastination is and what it isn't, I guess. And I think some of the stuff that Dan Sullivan talks about is amazing. And really, I totally agree with him. It really, on balance, is not a weakness. It's just something that's natural, I think. I
Yeah,
think it's a signal, as he points out, it's something's not right for whatever reason, um, and you're stopped for a reason, and it's really a signal to evaluate, ask for help. In anything in life, when we look at anything from two sides, right? Most of the time, there's positive and negatives in everything that we do,
yeah.
and so really just looking at the positive side of it and saying, okay, I'm stopped. Now what?
Mike, a question to that on the psychological part. Would you say categorically there's an answer to once you hit procrastination? Is the embedded message, "Don't do it," or is the embedded message, do it with caution," or is there another message?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just bugging you about how many times we said awareness in some of our other, but the thing
Yeah.
is that we don't
Mm.
identify procrastination for what it is sometimes, right? Like if
Yeah.
we, if we say to ourselves like all our um, our January 1st goals. Of course, January 1st was a few months ago, but all those New Year's goals, and
Yeah.
then we're saying, hey, we're going to go to the gym and all that, and then all of a sudden we don't go to the gym. Well, we recognize that as procrastination, right? But lots of times we don't see when we don't do things as procrastination. And so it's like anything, if you don't, it's a blind spot. Like
It is.
if you don't
Yeah.
see it as what it potentially could be, then you're not empowered to act.
That's right. And we talk about it in the book that it'll cost you. You know,
Mhm,
if you sink into that procrastination too deeply, it'll cost you. And one of the biggest costs is time, and that would
mhm,
apply to anything, not just finance, but
mhm,
health, right? If you
mhm,
don't get yourself on track with that, that could cost you more
mhm,
issues in the future. The
mhm,
same thing in finance. Wealth creation depends on time being on your side. So
mhm,
the more you procrastinate and wait and hold off and don't take the time to make it a priority and understand what's holding you back or where you need more education, it'll cost you,
mhm.
right?
Fear is something that's kind of hardwired into us. There's a lot of information out there that's saying that fear is not necessarily learned. It's hardwired, and so what we can do is we can actually have actions to overcome fear or change our thoughts about the things that we're scared about, or even recognizing it as fear. Right? That it's a
Yeah,
kind of it's a hardwired thing, and then we talk a little bit, when we were all hunter gatherers, there was a real issue around energy consumption, right? Like we all had to
yeah,
go out and do our thing, because if you didn't, if you if you were lazy, and someone caught something, you weren't gonna be, you weren't gonna get to eat, right? So when there's an issue around use of resources and having supplies, and you had to conserve your energy because there's really survival is on the line. Okay, right? We understand that. However, there are different challenges today, but most of the time the grocery store is open, right? And so
yeah,
we're
that's
not
right.
we're not constrained in similar ways, right? But yet those biological things are there, right? So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, I think I'd like to think of procrastination for myself as something called, I call a pause to maybe just figure out things on the details that I need to embrace and
Mhm.
brief up on.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, 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 and I think you and we've seen it in our clients more often than not when they do procrastinate,
Mhm.
and perhaps they're not even aware they're doing it.
Mhm.
Um, Very rarely they're telling us they're procrastinating, but they're doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what would you recommend for a client to do if that happens?
Well, it's hard, right? Because, and what we've been trained to do is to help people kind of overcome some of those issues through conversation, and it's having the right kind of conversation. So
Hmm.
it's asking some open-ended questions and really trying to understand what's important to them, because what we don't
Yeah,
realize is we figure out
very true.
a lot of stuff through conversation, right? Like there's all these thoughts that are going on in our mind, right? And they're jumbled and we don't know. And then all of a sudden you and I will talk about it, and I'll be saying, well, geez, I'm a little bit worried about this. And you'll talk to me, okay, well, talk to me about something behind that. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like this is what it is. And but that's all been solved through discourse, right? And
Yeah,
so, but yeah, you're right. Like we see it in clients are like, they they say, "Oh, I don't have enough time." There's other, I guess, reasons. I was going to say the word excuse. I guess I said the word excuse. That they don't respond, and that's okay, right? Like because lots of times I say, okay, it's never no. It's just not right now, right? Because I don't give up on them. I still stay in touch, and hopefully there's an
yeah,
opportunity down the road. But there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear around financial matters, don't you think?
yeah. There, oh, a lot of it. Yeah, and usually it could even be a subconscious thing that they're not really aware of what's really holding them back. You know, maybe there's even a health issue there, or there is a business or a job thing that's underlying, that's bugging them, and that's preventing them from moving forward. But like you say, discourse, a good chat about it.
Mhm,
Like so
mhm,
many things, even in family life, right? You've got a problem in your mind and you talk about it, and this big elephant thing has gone into the size of a fly. It just shrinks right in front of your eyes by just talking about it.
mhm, Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had a conversation with a fella yesterday. We were talking about the number, right? And all of us wanna
Yeah.
figure out the number because, as you and I have talked about before, that really what most people are concerned about in the future is having an income stream, um, when they reach that point where they wanna start trading their money for time. And what is that number?
Yeah.
And we started talking about the number. I won't tell you the number, but this is a person that lives a great lifestyle and a really great career. And we started talking about the number, and he's like, "Oh, well,
Really.
I'm not going
Wow.
to be there, right?" And I said, "Well, hey, there's lots of things that we can do, right? Like, you can reduce your lifestyle. That's not a great solution, but it's a solution. But the other thing is too is, and we talk about people a lot, is it let's just work a little bit longer. Like some of these people have so much skills and so many skills, I guess is a better way to say it, and because they are so skilled and they have so much experience, they can actually work on a
Yeah.
different time basis. They work a few months of the year, you know, make a certain amount, and then it takes all the pressure off those resources, right? And so
Absolutely.
you could see him ease up a little bit when we started talking about that because yeah, lots of people are scared. But the thing is if you're not willing to have the conversation, like, that day is
Yeah.
coming for all of us, right? You're gonna have the conversation at some point, right? But that's our job, right? That's our job to, you know, be there as a support and ask good questions and you know, and try and help them think through what's important for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the world seems to be in a mess, but things are easier nowadays for people to continue to work, like you suggest.
Mhm.
We're in a gig economy. People can work from their laptop very
Mhm.
easily in
Mhm.
many sort of fields. Even
Mhm.
doctors work on their laptops.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is crazy what you can actually do if you want to. And
Mhm.
like you say, it'll take the pressure off. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
not getting too far off our subject, but there is a shortage for talented people always.
Yeah.
And now we have an ability to actually connect people through, this amazing technology that we have, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
sitting in sunny and cold Medicine Hat, Alberta. You're sitting in beautiful Victoria,
Gray and
BC.
wet today, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
BC. And really from, thanks to technology and our nice, kind of screens, like, it's almost like you're here. To make sure I turn in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Eric.
So
Right?
yeah,
Yeah, so there's a ton of opportunity for people to go out and create something, and it's really, um, if I could, Eric, if I can just make one point is, I was listening to this book on, family wealth, and when we're talking about like generational wealth, right, which is something that you and I don't always run into, right?
yeah,
Um, but they talk about this cycle, and I think this cycle happens even. They talk about the cycle inside of generational wealth, which is called um, creativity, right? So there's a period of creativity where there's a lot of wealth created, and then there's this
yeah,
period of stasis, and then there's this period of dissipation, right? And what they talk about is they talk about three generations. The first generation is creative, the second generation is just kind of stasis, and then the third generation is dissipation. So they talk about, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in three generations, right? Like where you're
yes,
starting all over again. And the one thing that they really emphasize in that book, which I think is very cool, and I think that's what you and I are kind of talking about right now, is creativity,
yeah,
and having every generation have the same creativity around, hey, what can we do? How can we, what's possible? What can we use our resources for? What are the other things? What's our inventory of talents? They talk about human and intellectual capital, and it's the same thing inside of families, right?
yeah.
You know, um,
And think out of the box a bit too, right? I mean,
mm-hmm,
that's what made them wealthy in the first place.
mm-hmm, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So, anyways, I thought
Yeah,
that was kind of
that's a
cool.
good point. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
So the issues with procrastination can be also perfectionism, right?
mm-hmm, yep,
Sometimes time is an issue, but a
Mhm.
lot of time it's manufactured as a reason. Um, what would be your final message on the subject for people to take home?
Well, the thing is that maybe get back to that creativity, but it's kind of like what and I made this mistake when I first started in the business. Well, maybe not first started, but a couple years into the business, and I was asking people, "Hey,
Yeah,
tell me what you want to do, right, for the rest of your life, right?" And that's a big question. That's a really big question. And so obviously I got lots of, well, I don't know, right? Because and they're saying I don't know because it's not a great question, right? Like it's a
yeah.
big question, right? Like heck, you and I are like still figuring out, well, geez, what do we want to do for the rest of our lives, right? And
When I grow up,
yeah, when I grow up, right? And we're kind of halfway there, right? Being generous maybe, but we're halfway there. Um and so, we kind of go through a process about, okay, well, maybe narrow it down. Like, what do you enjoy about, what you do? What do you enjoy about your vacations? And talk about things that they enjoy to do, or even talk about what you don't want, right? Because even starting with what you don't want can help define maybe what you do want, right? And
yeah,
again, it's in that those questions um and I think what we're asking people to do is we're asking people to go out and seek support
yeah,
and the right kind of support. Individuals who will get into a conversation about their goals, right? Because you know, yes, we can talk about financial tools and we can talk about strategies and move money here, move money there, put it in the corporation, take it out of the corporation. We can do all these things, but why?
yeah, yeah. What's the
Why?
end goal? Yeah,
You know, right? Yeah, like,
absolutely.
yeah, there's gotta be some compelling reason to do these things. Like, it's about really creating a future, and I can wholeheartedly say that, and you and I have talked about this lots before, is that those early years of kids, I was floating down the river of life, and if somebody asked me, said, "Dude, I just wanna get up, I wanna get the kids out of that door, and I wanna get and go have my coffee. You wanna talk to me about anything else? Sorry, I have no bandwidth for it."
So we understand. We
Yeah,
understand if people
yeah,
need to make a pause,
yeah,
and we're here to support them.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and having good conversations, right?
yeah,
Like conversations around tools, I don't think is the first place to start. I think we need to talk about what creates joy, what creates happiness, what you're doing, and then see how your financial tools can support you. Um,
exactly. Yeah. And
because
address
like
any fear aspect. Yeah.
yeah, well, for sure, or start
Mhm,
working
mhm.
on those, right? And really
Mm,
having people feel like they're being heard. Um,
yeah.
like as we when we get into the chapter on max potential, we see there, lots of people are spending so much time focusing on rate of return when they're only saving 2% of their income.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah,
I look forward to getting into that one. Yeah,
yeah. That's gonna be a good one.
yeah.
So what else you have
But
on your list there, my man?
well, for this subject, I think we've kinda covered the essence of what we wrote about, and,
Yeah, I think there's one
I
more
think our
thing.
message to our
Yeah,
yeah,
go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead, Mike. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say that
Uh,
we did talk about one story in the book that maybe, we haven't chatted about, is about not seeing the bigger picture, and I had this conversation with a client who was gonna save some money f for his daughter,
yeah,
and, because we are looking at an insurance strategy to actually have the money available down the road. He said, "Mike, I can just save the money," and I said, "I've seen his operation." I said, "I totally get it. You could totally save the
yeah.
money." I said, "But, couple years down the road, you got all this money sitting in your bank account and that land over there that you've been looking at comes available. What are you going to do?" He said, "Well, I'm going to buy it." I said, "Okay, so where's the cash?" so, so again, it's one of those things, right? Is it having, again, it just goes back to the bigger picture thing. And do you have any
Yeah.
stories from clients where, you kind of were able to kind of clarify something for them that, so that they can move or, kind of get over that kind of procrastination? Or is there anything that comes to your mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for the most part, people fall into the groove where they feel they don't have time. and we all can make time for things we want to do, and it
Mhm.
just comes down to something they don't want to quite do yet.
Mhm.
So usually
Mhm.
when the conversation drifts into that and we recognize that as a factor, it's a very easy solution to go, okay, you know what, if time is really an issue, let's just pause for X amount of time, and we
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
recognize it and give it that space that it needs.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's usually an opportunity to go into the real reason. So we've seen that happen in our office quite a bit, and it's usually not a negative, actually, once we actually look at it together.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, no, you definitely have to give people space, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you
In
know?
terms of stories, Mike, I can't think of anything clearly off the top of my head, but it's not uncommon for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think today, what did we talk about? Well, we talked about procrastination is not a weakness.
Yes.
It's a signal to evaluate, ask for help. There's some biological or some cultural or some historical, basis to this. I guess when you and I were sitting, or I guess our ancestors were sitting in a hut in a jungle or something like that, right?
Yep.
Fear is hardwired. Um, and so really it's about what actions are we doing to help us overcome fear. And we obviously need to support each other in doing that. Um, Asking people, what do you want to do for the rest of your life is not a great question. Um, there's better questions. You need to break that down because that's a big question, right? So
Yeah.
usually when you don't get a great answer is probably not a great question. Yeah, and financial matters scare people. They can be overwhelmed. Um, they can resort to perfectionism and a lot of different ways of trying to deal with their discomfort
Hmm.
around making a choice. Choice is my favorite word, and then ultimately they need support. They need support to help people in the darkness. You see, Eric, how we're the light there
Yes.
in the outro here. the, the
And that's
light is
our aim.
there. The light is there. The light is there, shining upon you to step on the stage and ask for support. And because there's lots of people that will sit there and really help people really get down to what's important to them and what they need to talk about and to overcome to be able to, you know, make good choices for them and their family.
Absolutely. And that's how we make that blind spot disappear. So,
Exactly. Exactly. All right, my friend. Well, hey, will you have a
awesome.
wonderful rest of the day. Great seeing you.
You too.
I'll,
Thanks everybody for
uh,
tuning in. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for tuning in. Tell your friends. Please subscribe. Going to the UFC, we got 4 or 5 more subscribers.
Nice, Mike.
Yeah, yeah.
Well
I'm
done.
hoping for a few
Yeah.
more. I'm asking my friend Noreen to ask for more subscribers. um, but yeah, it's kind of it's fun, eh? We're getting close. But book date May 8th,
Yeah.
right? That's our date. Looks
Yeah.
like, right? So the book's
That's
going to
right.
be out
Yeah.
soon, and so we're still
There'll be a pre-launch before that. Yeah.
yeah still do some work there, but we're getting close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very exciting, Mike. Very
awesome.
exciting. Yeah.
Okay, Eric. Well, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it. Yeah. You too.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
buddy. Bye
Thank you.
bye.